Meet the Freshman Kansas Jayhawks edition. This is part of our series where we ranked the top 21 incoming freshman classes in the country. Kansas slots in 15th on our list. Now, we're talking to a guy who has some very rosy projections for the two-man class here. You had this group ranked 14th, so just one spot lower than you had them. I had them 19th. I don't think 15th is too high. I just think there's a lot of classes with more than two guys in it. And I do question how much either of them will impact this team this year. But do you think 15th feels about right for Kansas?
Yeah, it's tough to put a two-man class much higher than this, particularly how star-studded and deep some of the classes at the top are. There's not much difference really between like 13 and 18 this year for me. But Kansas, you have two guys who are going to come in and may have limited impacts this year, but seem like guys who are going to be building blocks for maybe year two, year three, which is a no small thing.
Yeah. Yep. It's two guys that are very talented that on a lot of programs or in a lot of programs would probably be projected starters. And at Kansas on this year's Kansas roster, maybe role players, maybe more, maybe less. We don't really know. But either way, they're great players. And Bill Self, once again, bringing in talent. We know he can do that. So we'll go player by player through this two-man class, sort of give you our detailed scouting thoughts and then what we think their role will be. We'll start with Rakis Passmore, 6'5", guard slash wing type to me. He's a hybrid
Mhm.
guy who is not going to play point guard. I think can defend multiple positions, anywhere from the two, definitely the three. Stretching to the four would be a stretch, but if we go small ball, I've seen crazier things than sort of playing four guards around a center. And Passmore, I think, at least appears big enough that he could help you in a lineup like that. He's the 42nd rated player in the country per on three, a true four-star type. What do you make of his game?
It's very smooth. It's athletic. It's not a lot of necessarily like wiggle to it. It's very downhill, very straightforward. Reminds me a lot of Ochai Baji in that sense. Like his 3 point shot is coming along. It's not quite there yet, but if you look at like Ochai Baji's career, he came in, contributed some as a freshman, and gradually grew to the point where he was an All American. He was the best player on the national championship team. Became a lottery pick by the time he was a senior. I think it's fair to look at Passmore and have him be on that kind of trajectory. He's going to fill the same kind of role, plays somewhat similarly to the way Baji plays too. I think it's easy to pencil him into that. And while he may not have a huge impact this year, I think they're probably hoping he can give them maybe 8 minutes off the bench here or there, provide maybe a little bit of depth. His
Yeah.
role is going to come into play year two, year three, when the veteran starters that this group has graduate, move on, and he maybe slides and becomes a starter next year, and then a really high impact guy in year three.
Yeah, I think he's a plus motor guy too. Like you
Yeah.
watch him in real game settings, and you always get the feel that he plays hard. I will never doubt Bill Self with any wing ever. Like the same way we talk about Purdue with bigs, it's like small forwards at Kansas usually turn into All Americans at some point, no matter what they come in as. I think Passmore could be that. Like you could tell me
Yeah.
3 years down the line, he's one of the very best players in college basketball. I would buy it. Downhill is my scout. Like everything seems predicated on getting to the rim. And he's so
Yeah.
strong. Like I think he's been able to do that at the prep level. I do question a little bit of like, you're a bully ball type wing, even if you're a great athlete. How does that translate in the Big 12 right away? Maybe there's a
Mhm.
thing there where he's just, not ready because he can't really do many of the advanced handle type things that you need creatively to earn minutes as a starter level guy at Kansas. But in the future, I think it's there. I buy the shot too. I know we haven't mentioned the shot. I don't think he's going to like come in and shoot 40% from three or anything, but he's a
Right.
capable shooter who's used to like a volume shooting role where he's played. Long term, I love his game. I think the Ochai comparison is a pretty good one, honestly. And anytime we're comparing a first team All American to a 4-star prospect, you got to feel good about it. Last thing for me on him, too, I think it's great for him that AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin are here. And that sounds a little backwards because, they're going to take his minutes, but
Mhm.
he physically, to me, AJ Storr and him going at it in practice is going to be
Yes.
great. And then with
Yes.
Rylan Griffin and the way he shoots the ball and how they're going to use him with movement shooting, it's like if Passmore could be in between those two guys in a couple years, you'd be ecstatic. Maybe there's some things he can learn from the vets while pushing the vets in year one on his way to being a role player for this team. And then the big guy in this class is Flory Badunga. I refer to him affectionately as Badunga Dunks. 6'9", true big, 5-star kid, 17th rated player in the class. On a team that doesn't have Hunter Dickinson, I think this is a starting center. On a team
Yes.
with Hunter Dickinson, he's probably playing spot minutes.
I think so. I think he probably still gets 15, maybe 20. Just depends on if KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson are the only two bigs that Bill Self feels comfortable having on the court together at the same time. Like I don't know how much you're going to play Badunga Dunks, as you affectionately call him, and Dickinson on the court together. Like to me, that may be a little bit redundant, but his athleticism, I think, is a nice complement to Dickinson because Dickinson, for all his skill, no one's going to mistake him for being like an elite level athlete per se. But Badunga Dunks is that. Like
Hmm?
he is freak athlete. Like I watch his tape and you look at somebody, I think it's somewhat similar to Udoka Azubuike in terms of what he can do around the rim. He's not as skilled, but you add like a more athletic Azubuike, you can throw in like David McCormack's like motor, questionable motor at times, which is some of the issue that Bill Self's gonna have to work out. But just the way Azubuike was a presence around the rim on both ends, and also dunked everything. That was the big reason why that comparison came to mind for me. I think again, this is somebody who next year Kansas is building their team around. It is a real centerpiece for them in year 2 and year 3. Bill Self is great at developing bigs, and this is somebody who, again, if he sticks around, is going to be a focal point for the Jayhawks.
Yeah, I think there's a world where he is the best backup center in the country this year. I don't think that's a stretch. Like by some services, he was like a top 4 player in this class, and that feels true. I know On3 ended up with him 17th. Um, I think he's better than that. I think he's a top 10 player in the class and freak athlete. Like, you're a 6'9" center. Most 5-star centers are honestly a little bigger than that, but he can leap out the gym. He's strong. He embraces physicality. He'll go through you both offensively and defensively. He dunks everything. He blocks everything. He has really good timing as a rim protector. He played high school ball in the state of Indiana, which, Indiana's a great high school basketball state. We've seen a lot of great players come through there. And he was
Yep,
just dominant at times, like in their state semifinal game back in 2023. He had 31 points, 19 rebounds, 8 blocks. Like,
that's the
I,
big thing. Is the rim protection is huge.
yeah. And I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. Now, I think his career at Kansas will be dependent on how good the players around him are. Like, if you drop Flory Badunga on a team that has limited shot creation, or, even last year was probably the most limited version of Kansas we will ever see. And they were still a great team. But to me, if he's on a team with great guards, like an all-American guard, surrounded by some shooters, guys he can play pick and roll with, he is dominant. If he's on a team where there's some spacing concerns, maybe there's not a super dynamic passing facilitator, then you don't get the fully optimized version of him. Like, I don't think we're going to see a bunch of post touches ever in his career and just let him eat. Maybe that develops. Bill Self's a great big developer, but I think you want to see him just sort of rim running. And
Yeah,
I would compare it to a guy. He reminds me of Thomas Bryant from Indiana,
yeah,
where Thomas
okay,
Bryant came in as a 5-star and he started and he was really good. And some of the skill stuff came later, but at minimum, it was like he's gonna be there defensively. He's gonna dunk. He's gonna catch lobs. And Thomas Bryant, I think, ended up with a reputation of a guy who plays super hard. I
mm-hmm.
think that's where he needs to get, and he's not there yet. But I'd be
Yeah.
surprised if he doesn't get there in a couple years. We'll
Yeah,
see.
he needs to get a little more disciplined too with his shot blocking. Like with his size and ability, he tries to block everything because normally he can block everything. But that gets him out of position with rebounds, gets him into some foul trouble. I think Kansas and Bill Self are going to work that out of him. But your point about the guards around him is very well taken. Like he needs a Devon Dotson, like Osbuke had, to like
Yeah.
really maximize his potential offensively. But worst case, you have a defensive anchor and somebody who can clean up the offensive misses. That's not nothing.
No, it's a great case. And it's funny comparing him to Dickinson because they're almost polar opposites as players to me.
Right. It's
Like,
it's it's perfect.
yeah, they're as different as two centers could come. Like Hunter is the supreme skill, great vision, not a rim protector really at all. And Badunga, like I think, can guard in space. He's going to block shots. He's going to dunk everything, but he's not. I don't want to say raw, just not polished offensively, skill wise. Watching these two battle in practice, like I'd pay money for that tape because I would bet you Flory makes Hunter better than any big he's
Mm-hmm.
practiced against has. And hopefully he can learn some of the offensive stuff from Hunter as we go. The one thing I'll really push back with you on, if we're doing like the role game, I think Flory is a fringe role player to me. If not a role player, he's a non-factor this year. And you
Yeah.
mentioned you could see like 15 to 20 minutes. I don't see how we get there at all. Hunter played 32 minutes last year. I can't imagine you want him much lower. Now, maybe you do, but I don't think KJ Adams is going anywhere. And if KJ is, aren't they going small ball instead of like you're not going to see Flory and Hunter play together ever, are you?
I don't think so, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I also think Dickinson's minutes last season, and mostly everybody's minutes last season. Who else were you going to go to? Right, like
Yeah.
that. We talked every Kansas video. Kansas fans hated us because we kept talking about how they had no depth because they had no depth, and it was a major concern. And you have more of that this year. 15 minutes is probably too high. Maybe it's more like 10 to 12.
Okay.
But I think he's a consistent impact role. Let's put it that way, where he's getting consistent minutes, and he provides a spark because he is so different than Dickinson. Like I think you put him in there for a 5 6 minute spurt each half, give Dickinson some time on the bench. It's essentially one TV timeout to one TV timeout. He's out there playing as hard as he can, running as fast as he can, blocking as many shots, and dunking as many basketballs as he
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting. That's a number I'm going to watch because bottom line to me, I am projecting Hunter Dickinson to be the national player of the year this year. Like that's my pick. I get Mark Sears and RJ Davis are good. Hunter's my pick. And if he's what I think he's going to be, I think you want Hunter playing 33 minutes a game. I think you just do. And maybe if Kansas is super good, you worry about like, let's protect him from himself. Let's make sure he's healthy in March. But to me, that's what's there. Like, I have no doubt anytime Hunter's on the bench, Flory will play. I just wouldn't want that to be more than like 8 minutes this year, no
can.
matter how good Flory is. And then year two, maybe we see something completely different. And maybe it is something too where you have to, maybe you should be a little concerned about keeping Flory happy. Not that I'm worried about him, the guy. I don't say anything like that, but like
Yeah.
players leave all the time if they don't get opportunity. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
Bill Self needs to keep that in mind this year?
I think somewhat, but again, you don't commit to Kansas behind Hunter Dickinson and are like, why aren't I playing 30 minutes a game?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that you don't make that decision if you're suddenly amazed and baffled at your limitations that went into the decision.
Yeah. He wouldn't be here if he wasn't ready for that. And I think that's a good thing. And it speaks to Kansas's
Yeah.
culture, how Flory fits in. Okay. I have some superlatives for you here. It's only a two-man class. So the answers are going to be a little redundant this time. But point blank, is there a one and done in this group?
No, I think both guys have the talent to be one if given the opportunity and things hit right. Like I think there are scenarios where that's in play for both of them, but I think those scenarios are far fetched, largely because they're not going to get the opportunities to really show what they can do at that
Okay.
level.
Yeah, with bigs, it's really interesting because Hunter's an example of this. If you are good your freshman year, you should go if you're a center. If you don't
Yeah.
and you start to get 20, 21 years old, the NBA doesn't draft centers the way they used to. So it is interesting to me that like the guy who is a projected NBA player is being really patient with his college approach because I don't think that's going to help his NBA prospects very much long term. There's a world where 4 years from now he's Cliff Amorie now instead of an NBA big. So I would keep my eye on
There's
it, but I don't
there's
know.
also a world he's Donovan Clingan, where he spends a year backing up an All American for national championship contender, starts the next year, plays the major role, and is a lottery.
That is certainly the formula that you would want to convince Flory is the move if you're Bill.
Yeah,
So I'll say no, but I would keep an eye on Flory because if Flory is as good as we think he can be right away, I think NBA scouts are going to notice anyway, even if he's in an 8 minute role, and you'll figure it out from there. Next up, who is the best player right now in this class? It's pretty easily Flory to me.
me too. Me too. Again, it's just a matter of playing time.
Yeah. Who will have the best career at Kansas by the time they are done?
To me, it comes down to how many years you think Badunga is going to be at Kansas. Because if you think Badunga is going to get to year 3, I think the answer is Badunga. If he follows the Klingon model and is like 2 and out, I think Passmore is a true 4-year guy and a guy who will develop into like an All-American, All Big 12 kind of player at Kansas. So I'm going to go Passmore for that reason. I think tenure is going to matter.
Yeah, I'm going to go Passmore as well. I can't knock the Bill Self wing trajectory right now. I
No.
just think it's too good. Whoever becomes the featured wing is an All American. I think he will end up having a chance at that. And yeah, I think with Badunga, even if it's a best case scenario, you're getting like one bench year, one starter year, maybe gone. And if he's still there, that might mean it's not going as well as you thought. And then Passmore could be a 4-year guy, honestly, given the way
Yeah.
Ochai and Jalen were. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Um, this one doesn't even feel fair to me. Maybe the answer is nobody, but we typically do biggest disappointment in the class. Will anybody disappoint here?
I don't think it's anybody. Um, Obviously, the room is there for Badunga to be the bigger disappointment because he has the higher expectations. And when you talk about like the defensive specialist, lob catcher who's got a developing offensive game, there's a chance he turns into like a Musa Cisse kind of guy where the rest just doesn't come, and then you wonder like how you can play him heavy minutes. Like I think that's always in play with these bigs. I don't think Badunga's going to go that route. I think he's way too talented to. But
Okay.
the fact that's the case there, and he's got a bigger range to fall, he's
Yeah,
I would go Badunga.
that makes sense. I'm going to take a pretty creative cop out way to answer this question. I think it's both in year one. And what I mean by that is if I could take the under on 12 minutes a game combined for these two in year one, I would take it. Um, I think the rest of the roster is that good. It has nothing to
It
do with
is.
how good these guys are. Like you're just no big in the country's playing over Hunter this year. And I could count on one hand how many wings would play over Store and Griffin. Like I just don't see
Yeah.
it. DeJuan Harris played 35 minutes a game last year at point guard. It's not like AJ Store's not here to play less than 30 minutes. Rylan Griffin, I don't think would have came here if he wasn't going to play big minutes. So it's the same reason they were just like no thanks to Riley Kugel. And I know there was other stuff with that,
Yeah.
but there's only so many minutes to go around. I think there's probably like 30 minutes total backing up the 1, 2, and 3. And Zeke Mayo's there. Shaquille Moore's there. So I
Yeah.
think there's a world where Passmore just doesn't play. And I don't think he would redshirt, but I think there's a world he doesn't play. And Badunga's playing like 7 backup center minutes. And collectively, the freshman class disappointed. But in reality, it's just wait a year. And then they're both really
Yeah.
good.
That's fair. I certainly implied. I think Kansas fans would like that because it means you're getting what you want out of the top.
Yep, exactly. It must be so fun to be a Kansas fan. That's always my takeaway when we do this. Like, oh, just take the number one center in the sport and we'll play him next year, not this
Stash them.
year. Like,
Stash
that's
them.
just crazy. If you like this video, we have 20 more of our Meet the Freshman series rolling out, 3 per day, both this week and next week. Thank you for watching. Car, you know what I love about you?
That I'm handsome?
You're reliable. I can count on you. Honestly, you remind me of Aaron Henry a little bit. Remember when their back was against the wall, nothing was going right, and man just showed up every day. He didn't make excuses. There were no problems. There were just solutions.
Sounds like me.
That's you. And it also reminds me of Duncan Mechanical Solutions, because if you're looking for quality furnace repair, look no further than the heating and air experts that you can trust. Comfort and quality are their standard. They're an HVAC company that serves Northeast Indiana and Southern Michigan, whether it's heating and air conditioning, plumbing, kitchen and bath remodeling, or emergency services when you need them most. Duncan Mechanical Solutions has reliable service that you can count on. Cart, remember when your basement almost exploded?
I remember when my basement almost exploded. I remember when my furnace itself was acting funny. I remember when my AC was acting funny. I wish I had Duncan in my back pocket. I wouldn't have to worry about it.
But yeah, I mean, I've never been anywhere in northern Indiana or southern Michigan that hasn't been perfectly cool or perfectly warm, depending on when the day called for. And that's because of Duncan Mechanical Solutions. They are the presenting sponsor for the month of July. Shout out to Duncan Mechanical Solutions. Go to duncanmechanicalsolutions.com to learn more.